Ever wonder what happens when a woman spends decades creating an empire built on shock value, banned by mayors, criticized by pastors, embraced by millions, only to realize that the darkest secret of her entire career wasn't something she ever did on stage, but something that happened to her body years before she ever held a microphone? For Lady Saw, born Marian Marie Hall on July 12, 1969 in the fishing village of Galina, St. Mary, that secret would remain hidden for decades, eventually emerging during a conversation about childhood trauma that ended with a confession no interviewer could have anticipated.
Before the fame, my mom she was in an abusive relationship with my dad. I believe that I used to get the most beaten, most of it. My dad would chain me, like chain both of my hands behind my back and like take me on that right there and he would lock it with padlock and big like cow chain. And he beat me and he used electric wire. He used hose, he used thing that the coconut grew up and we call it broom. I don't know why that man beat me, so, and it's only because I love music and I love walk up and down and sing and DJ for people, you know? And I realized something though. Even people ask me, oh, is it that you love your dad?
To understand how she reached that point though, the story has to begin right at the start. She was the middle child among 9, all of them packed into a single-room house that they shared with their grandmother, while her father divided his time between fishing and farming, and her mother earned a living scrubbing floors as a domestic worker. There was little room for tenderness in that home, and there was certainly very little money. Young Marian sold fruit along the roadside and raced homemade wooden carts down dirt paths with the neighborhood boys, a tomboy in every sense. She was so boyish that strangers frequently assumed she was a boy, largely because of her short-cropped hair and the Rastafarian tam she wore wherever she went. Long before the explicit lyrics and band performances that would eventually define her career, she was simply a church-going child, standing alongside her siblings in a Seventh-day Adventist choir every week after her father took the entire family through a full water baptism. It was an image so distant from the persona she would eventually create that it hardly seems like the same person.
You started off in a church, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a little district called Galina in St. Mary. My dad took all of us and got us all baptized. And wow. I don't mean like you baptize the baby, you know, like with the water on there. You go under.
You go under the water, right?
Yeah, so my dad took all of us, got us baptized. We didn't even understand what Christianity was about, but it was a Seventh-day Adventist church.
That same childhood also carried a much darker side, one she has only revealed publicly in fragments over the years. Her father was a violent man, and according to her own account, the beatings were constant and increasingly cruel. What began with a simple belt could escalate into sessions involving electrical wire and a padlock chain, which was used to restrain her hands to a window frame while he repeatedly struck her. He could remain calm enough between the attacks to eat dinner and take a shower before returning to continue the abuse.
Was your father physically abusive to you and your mother?
Yeah, my father don't play. You don't even want to know. I'm writing an autobiography, so we're planning on doing a movie. You know, Black Magic, my boy, gonna help me out and some other people in Jamaica. So you'll hear about it. But he was very, not to just me, to all his kids and my mom, like physically beat the hell out of you. And I'm not talking like how you whoop your child with a belt, you know. That man go in like hard with electric cars and whatever. He he would chain me on a window jam, like chain you with a chain, lock it with a padlock. Then he would beat you and then he'll have his dinner, come back, he'll take a shower, he'll come back, so you get a few good rounds until...
Did he ever go to jail?
No, but my friends, there were some neighbors who were older than me.
There were nights when she couldn't return home at all, chased around a swimming pool as a paint can was thrown toward her head before she managed to flee up a staircase, eventually hiding outside in complete darkness while her sister secretly brought her bits of food. She was far too afraid to sleep indoors until the danger had completely passed.
So when I took off, right, my dad beat all of them up. And I'm running, there was a pool in the yard, right? And it's like a whole house, like a whole hotel. So I'm going around the pool, my dad is running behind me around the pool, and I'm singing, and he throw this pan, like a paint pan, like where you have the paint, he poop at me, and I sight it, and there were a lot of, they got like a lot of steps going up to another part, and I'm running, and he's after me, and I'm not there, and he's like getting frustrated, you know, because I'm ducking, and so I run up the step, and I'm taking like 3 steps, 4 steps at a time, and like he's like, you know, by later on I can't sleep in the house, so I have to sleep in the bushes.
On other occasions, the punishment became even more extreme. Her father would wait for her in the back room until she finally came out, then pursue her with a machete instead of using his hands. The violence had gone far beyond anything that could be considered ordinary discipline, leaving an impact that remained with her long after she eventually left Galina.
My sisters, they would bring food for me, but it's really dark back there, and when you wake up in the morning, you look around and they bring some food for you. Sometimes your dad just act like nothing happening, so you go back in the house. When you coming out in the morning, like you go in the back room and he waits on you till you laugh.
Her mother wasn't spared either, repeatedly escaping to Kingston with the children, only to be brought back and publicly shamed for allegedly abandoning her family. It was a cycle Marian witnessed over and over as a child, powerless to stop it, but old enough to remember every detail. Ironically, it was within that same unstable household that she found her way out as a young teenager. Whenever her father left for nighttime fishing, she would sneak out with her older sister to a dancehall venue near their home, taking in the sound systems and raw energy of a scene that would eventually help pull her away from Galina for good. By her mid-teens, she was working as a domestic worker in exchange for food and clothing, later taking a sewing position at the Free Zone in Kingston. But at 15, she left that behind to pursue music full-time, performing with local sound systems and eventually connecting with the Stereo One system in Kingston, where her voice and presence began attracting genuine attention. In 1987, while deliberately modeling her vocal style after a DJ she admired, she took the name Lady Saw, borrowing it from Jamaican singer Tenor Saw rather than creating it from scratch. Her earliest singles, including Love Me or Left Me and If Him Left, began the musical journey that would eventually establish her name.
The child don't make me any less than a woman.
Push her further into the spotlight, but it was her decision to sing openly about sex and female pleasure at a time when male artists dominated those subjects without facing anything close to the same consequences that turned her into a genuine lightning rod almost overnight. She has explained that she watched male DJs degrade women through song after song with virtually no backlash, and she deliberately chose to turn that script upside down, speaking openly about the vagina and female pleasure, until the mayor of Montego Bay sought to prevent her from performing on the city's stages, labeling her shows too explicit and too lewd for the public. Ironically, that backlash only increased her notoriety even further.
The men were singing about women and sex and all that, but not that. Some of them were like just degrading women. So I came out and started singing about the vagina, the sex, and how pretty the vagina was, and how you should use the muscle and do what. And that's when everybody started paying attention. Like I came out raw. I just say, I'm going to flip this. Yeah. And I start singing about everything, like X-rated. That was when I got the attention from the mayor in Montego Bay, Jamaica. They say, we don't want her performing here.
They don't want you, so they banned you.
Yeah, they say, are we banning her from performing here because she's too raw, too raunchy, too lewd? But the men were doing worse than...
Her 1994 debut album, Lover Girl, brought that fearless voice to a much broader audience. By 1996, she had pushed even further into controversy with Give Me the Reason, an album filled with provocative tracks such as Life Without End, Name Stand for Sex, and Condom, years before mainstream artists were willing to address those subjects so openly. That early chapter also gave rise to two of her most discussed industry disputes. Alongside Tanya Steffens, before their own disagreement years later, she recorded a joint diss track titled Brock Them Out, aimed directly at rival DJ Lady G. It showed that her willingness to engage in lyrical battles had been part of her career almost from the beginning. Around the same period, her conflict with Lady Patra began. Lady Saw accused Patra of taking one of her songs almost word for word after being signed, changing only a line about a long-distance phone call into something more romantic. She considered the alteration so disrespectful that she later said she nearly slapped Patra when they encountered each other. Eventually, the situation became respectful between them, and they had no further problems. But Lady Saw remembered being particularly upset because they had once spent time together in Jamaica, and after Patra got signed, she returned and performed one of Lady Saw's songs with the wording changed. Few songs from this period demonstrated her ability to hide sharp meanings beneath polished production, quite like Sycamore Tree, a track many casual listeners assumed was a gentle romantic ballad about lost love beneath a tree. It was later revealed by Lady Saw to have a much more suggestive meaning. She explained that the song was actually about refusing a sexual favor to a partner, a meaning so far removed from its soft delivery that many listeners completely missed it for years. She later confirmed that the events described in the song were based on her own experience, explaining that the song was about her choosing not to give her partner what he wanted. That single, released on her 1997 album Passion, became her first album to chart on Billboard. By the following year, she had already put out a greatest hits collection, as well as a fourth studio album, 99 Ways, establishing a work ethic that barely slowed down over the next decade. As the 1990s gave way to the 2000s, her commercial success expanded well beyond Jamaica. Her appearance on Vitamin C's 1999 single, Smile, reached the Billboard Hot 100 and earned a gold certification. Then, in 2002, her guest vocals on No Doubt's Underneath It All helped the song reach triple platinum status and win a Grammy, although the award officially went to the group rather than Lady Saw herself. Longtime fans have continued to point to that detail as one of dancehall's most notable cases of an artist going unrecognized. During this period of major success, her longest romantic relationship also unfolded. She had an on-and-off relationship with producer John that included 2 separate engagements, both of which eventually ended after he was unfaithful. She has only spoken about the betrayal briefly in interviews, but when she has addressed it, she has described it as another painful example of giving her trust to the wrong person, with the softer side of herself that very few people outside her family ever knew. At roughly the same time, she was privately dealing with infertility, a deeply personal struggle she eventually turned into the 2007 song No Less Than a Woman, Infertility, from her album Walkout. The song was created specifically for women quietly experiencing the same pain, offering words to those who struggled to express their grief. She later became a mother through adoption instead, welcoming 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, and building a family on her own terms after biological motherhood repeatedly proved impossible. It is a part of her life she protects far more carefully than most of the painful experiences she has discussed publicly, rarely naming her children even when speaking openly about difficult chapters of her past. She has explained that she has always had children in her life, even though she never gave birth herself. She described having more children than she expected and viewed it as a blessing, connecting that experience to the biblical passage in Isaiah 54 about the barren woman being blessed with more children. Her friendship with Maka Diamond also dates back to the early 2000s, beginning as a genuine friendship before professional competition and industry politics eventually created distance between them. Unlike her more private conflict with Tanya Steffens, the disagreement with Maka Diamond unfolded publicly and eventually led to a memorable lyrical confrontation at the Sting Festival in 2013. Dancehall fans still remember the event as one of the genre's major stage clashes, with the crowd largely declaring Lady Saw the winner that night. Meanwhile, her feud with Tanya Steffens had gradually developed into something closer to a prolonged Cold War. Their conflict was less about one specific incident and more about opposing approaches to music. Lady Saw built her reputation through raw, sexually explicit performances, while Tanya Steffens established herself as a more conscious voice within dancehall, known for lyrics designed to challenge audiences rather than simply entertain or provoke them. The industry spent years presenting the 2 women as opposite examples of what a female DJ could represent, further fueling a rivalry that continued through multiple album cycles for both artists. Throughout the mid to late 2000s, Lady Saw's catalog continued growing, while her public image became increasingly controversial. Striptease arrived in 2004 and reached both the R&B and reggae charts, while Walkout in 2007 featured her infertility anthem alongside more of the explicit material that had become a defining part of her career. Fans had come to expect. In 2009, she released another greatest hits collection, and in January 2010, she launched her own label, Divas Records. For a female dancehall artist at the time, it was an unusual move and a clear indication that she wanted greater control over her music, rather than remaining dependent on producers who had benefited from her image for 2 decades. My Way followed in December 2010, and by 2012, she had begun openly discussing a major change in direction. That year, she told a Jamaican media outlet that she planned to leave dancehall behind completely and concentrate on gospel music. At the time, the announcement seemed premature, but eventually it became reality. Alter Ego arrived in 2014 with appearances from Beres Hammond, Flo, Rita, and Oli Campbell, and it felt almost like a farewell message to the genre that had made her famous. That same year brought one last major industry conflict before her conversion. Her relationship with Spice, which had initially been more like a mentorship than a rivalry, had seen an established star supporting a younger, rising artist, but in 2015 their relationship completely broke down after tensions erupted at the Best of the Best concert in Miami. Spice accused Lady Saw of intentionally performing before her scheduled time in an effort to undermine her set and take away her moment. The accusation sparked years of public exchanges and an ongoing disagreement over who genuinely deserved the title of Queen of Dancehall. The rift became so permanent that Marian later stated that reconciliation or collaboration between them would never happen. Her position was reportedly so firm that Spice withdrew from the 2023 Groovin' in the Park event rather than share a stage with her former mentor. When asked whether she became annoyed whenever Spice's name was brought up, Marian rejected that description. She explained that what affected her most was the perceived unfairness of the situation, arguing that people had created a narrative that did not reflect what actually happened. She also pointed out that her earlier comments about nobody being able to take Lady Saw's place had been made years before, during the period when their disagreements first began. Then, in December 2015, following the death of fellow artist Jay Capri, everything changed. She underwent a baptism that she has since described as unconventional, publicly retired the Lady Saw name, and reinvented herself as Minister Marian Hall, promising never to perform dancehall again. The persona that had made her famous had suddenly become something she felt she needed to leave behind completely. The price of leaving that world behind turned out to be higher than she had expected. In 2020, she revealed that she believed she had been denied a United States visa because immigration officials still connected her application to the Lady Saw persona she had already abandoned, making her feel as though her spiritual transformation had been punished rather than recognized. She later explained that many things happened after her baptism and that she believed God began sending her on different missions, including one involving a woman working in prostitution, for which she said she was given a specific name. What followed was a period of genuine hardship that she has described openly rather than presenting it as a story designed to gain sympathy. She spoke about falling into depression and experiencing anxiety attacks after people who had once surrounded her because of her fame disappeared when she could no longer travel. At one point, she slept on a friend's couch in Florida, refusing an offered bed because she felt too proud and too broken to accept more than she believed she deserved. She had previously lived in large homes in Jamaica, including properties with multiple bedrooms and significant possessions. But after choosing to follow Jesus, she said many of the people who had once treated her like royalty suddenly turned against her. People who had once been willing to give her almost anything began treating her harshly, and even people she believed loved her eventually asked her to leave. She said some people complained that she preached too much or spoke in tongues too often. At one point, she was close to being homeless. During the period when people were wearing masks, she recalled walking along the road crying because she did not want anyone to recognize her. She eventually slept on her friend's couch after the friend's guests had left, even though the friend had offered her a king-sized bed. Eventually, she began rebuilding her life through a church, a restaurant, and a growing sense that God was repositioning her. Some people looked at her situation and assumed the former dancehall star was finished, but she viewed surviving that period as part of her testimony. She described going through depression after being rejected by people she had trusted and suffering anxiety attacks when she had no travel documents, ultimately seeing the experience as a period in which she questioned God about what was happening before believing she would rise again. She has described that difficult period in other interviews as well, including carrying a small portable pulpit from one rented room to another. On another occasion, she emailed an ex asking for financial assistance, only to feel compelled to withdraw the message the next morning. Instead, she chose to rebuild through faith and small donations from strangers who were moved by her ministry, rather than return into the relationships and resources of her former life. Even while rebuilding, ministry brought its own challenges. She has described coordinated groups of bloggers attacking her whenever she announced something new, only for those same people to accuse her of causing trouble when she responded. According to Marian, the pattern followed her from dance hall stages into the pulpit. She has said that she remains feared by some people from the music industry, including those in secular music. Whenever she announces a new song, she claims that people quickly mobilize bloggers to attack her, and then portray her as the troublemaker when she responds. Somewhere during this post-conversion period came what she considers one of the strongest confirmations of her new purpose. She recalled being contacted by a 15-year-old girl who told her that 5 men had sexually assaulted her and that she planned to take her own life. Instead of avoiding the subject, Marian drew on her own experiences of abuse and spoke with the teenager directly, trying to convince her not to allow the people who hurt her to determine the end of her life. The girl later called back simply to say that she was still alive. Marian continues to view that moment as evidence that openly surviving trauma can sometimes help another person survive their own private pain. She recalled receiving the call from the young girl who introduced herself as 15 years old and told Marian that 5 men had abused her and that she intended to kill herself. Marian said she was not yet saved at the time and initially wondered why the girl had chosen to contact her. She ultimately drew from her own past and shared her experience with the teenager. She has described similar encounters since then, including distributing 1,000 Bibles at a Sunfest appearance alongside Cedella Marley. She also faced criticism after baptizing people in a public fountain outside a civic center, with the event eventually being cut short by a promoter's son because the crowd's reaction continued for so long. Her relationship with faith has become equally intentional. Marian now tells congregations that she considers herself divorced from her previous marriage, while simultaneously describing herself as essentially still married to Jesus. Before beginning her ministry, she had been engaged twice during her long relationship with producer John, but the relationship ultimately ended because of infidelity. Today, Hall encourages women not to rush into marriage, arguing that genuine love should arrive according to God's timing rather than out of desperation. As of 2026, Marian Hall's estimated net worth is around $1.5 million, accumulated through 3 decades of record sales, international collaborations, her independently launched label, and a ministry now supported largely through donations rather than concert income. Compared to the scale of her cultural impact, she considers the financial figure far less important than the people she believes she has reached throughout her journey. From the dirt roads of Galina to Grammy-winning collaborations and eventually gospel ministry, her story has taken a dramatic path. Which chapter of her journey surprised you the most? Share your biggest takeaway below, and for more unfiltered stories, make sure to follow and turn on notifications.